He is also the Chief Medical Device Regulatory Affair Advisor of SynBio. He has more than 9 years of experience in medical device, CE certification, clinical evaluation, risk management, clinical trials, and toxicological analysis, as well as usability engineering. He has supported many medical devices startups, as well as supported manufacturing companies to accurately strategize their regulatory pathway and help them for the earliest possible entry into the market, not only in India, but as well as in Europe and USA. So I welcome Siddharth for this session. Uh, Siddharth,
Yeah, yes.
a warm welcome to you from Sign. Uh, uh, so before I hand over the session to Siddharth, I have one announcement to make for the participant that will take all the questions towards the end of the session. Please post your questions in the chat box, as well as we will also provide the polling questions for the for your valuable feedback. Please provide your answers to those polling questions. Now I request Siddharth to begin the session. Siddharth, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Pranita, for the wonderful introduction about me. So, welcome all the participants to this session on medical device clinical validations and regulatory affairs. So, as you all know about that, currently the Indian medical device rule has been changed. So, how it will going to impact on your product, either in terms of selling the product into the Indian market or in terms of conducting any type of pilot or pivotal clinical validations for your devices. So I will be quickly go through the all the requirements, the step-by-step approach to how your devices will going to be impact as per the new Indian Medical Device Rule 2017, and henceforth how you can able to market your product into the Indian market and also into the European and the USA market. So there is as I have interacted many of the medical device startups across India, and the misconceptions which I am hearing from them is that my medical device is a non-notified or it's not regulated. So hence we don't require a medical device manufacturing license from the CDSCO. And I have also seen that many of them, they are telling that we only need a NOC. NOC is no objection certificate from the CDSCO, so that we can able to sell the product into the Indian market. And many of them, they are also telling that we don't need the ISO 13485 certifications because we don't have a manufacturing facility in house. We are doing the manufacturing, or we are outsourcing our manufacturing facility to some other facility. So in that case, we are not liable to get for the ISO 13485. So these are the two major misconceptions among the medical device startups is right now, and which is not correctly. And how it is not correct and what is the right way to move ahead, we will going to discuss further. So as you all know that the Indian Medical Device Rule has come out in year 2017, and earlier they have only given the power to the notified medical devices to get the manufacturing license from the CDSCO. But on 11th of February 2020, they have released two gadget notifications. One gadget notification, SO 648, talk about the medical device definition, and the second gadget notification, GSR 102, it talk about the what are the registration process for the regulated and the non-regulated medical devices. So, and again there are misconception that in the GSR 102 they have provided a list of around 20 devices. So many of the medical device startups, they are telling and asking me that our product doesn't fall under that list, so we don't need to have a manufacturing license. So this is not correct, because from on the 11th February, the definition which they have released, it talk about that what it talk about a definition I will be going to discuss right now. The definition of medical devices as per the SO 6482, it is all devices including an instrument, apparatus, appliance, implant, material or other article which used alone or in combination, including a software or an accessory intended by its manufacturers to be used especially for human being or animal, which does not achieve the primary intended action in or on human body or animal by any pharmacological or immunological or metabolical means, they can be classified as a medical devices. So all your devices which are used for the diagnosis, prevention, monitoring, or treatment or elevation of any disease or disorder can be classified as a medical devices, or it is used for elevation or treatment or monitoring of any injury or disability can be classified as a medical devices. If it is used for investigation, replacement, or modification of our anatomy or physiological process can be classified as a medical devices. And if a device is used for supporting or sustaining life, can also be classified as devices. And further, any disinfectant which are used for the medical device, which are used to disinfect the medical devices, like the sterilizations and anything, can be classified as a medical devices. And also, the devices which are used for the control of conceptions can be termed as a medical devices. So broadly, on 11 February, they have classified the medical devices. Earlier, the first version of Indian Medical Device Rule 2017, it doesn't have any definition of medical devices. So so now it's become very much clear cut about that what is called about medical devices and how it will going to impact on the impact on getting the manufacturing license. Now, one of the very important definition is about the loan license, because why the loan license is very important to all the medical device startups is because you don't have a manufacturing facility right now, right? But you want to either manufacture your device for conducting the clinical studies, or for conducting the clinical studies you need to got the test license, right? Or if you want to go for the manufacturing activity, so also you need to go for the manufacturing, but you don't have a manufacturing facility right now, so you are dependent on some other manufacturing facility. So as per the requirement of Indian Medical Device Rule, you are still liable to get the manufacturing license, but you have to term it as a loan license. Just a minute. Now we are doing the, as you all know, that classification of medical devices as per the Indian Medical Device Rule, they are based on risk based. So how to classify your medical devices either into a class A, B, C, or D. For the class A, it will be the lower risk medical devices. Few of the examples are the mask and the limb prosthesis. For B, which are into the low moderate risk medical devices, some of the example are the physiotherapy devices. Class C are moderate to higher risk medical devices are portable ECG monitoring devices and the ventilators. And the higher risk medical devices, they are classified into class D. Some of the example are the cardiac stents. So how we can say that whether and how your devices will falling under into class A, B, C, or D. So what approach you to classify, how to classify. So one of the very important thing to classify your device is to define the intended use of your device. You have to first define its intended use, where it's going to use it, for how many duration of time it will going to use it. So once you know that it's intended use of your devices, then the second methodology to classify it is your duration. Depending upon the duration of use of your devices, whether it is used for transient, short term, or long term. For transient use, it means normally intended for continuous use for less than 60 minutes. If your device is intended for continuous use for less than 60 minutes, you can say your device is a transient use device. If it is used for around not more than 30 days, you can say that it's a short-term device. And if it's used for continuous more than 30 days, it can be a long-term devices. Many of the implantable devices and the higher risk devices, they are falling under the long-term devices. So after you have defined your intended use, then you have to define your product as per the duration of use, transient, short term, and long term. After you have done this, the two steps, now the third step is to define the type of device it is, whether it is an invasive device, a body orifice device, surgically invasive device, implantable device, or active medical devices or active diagnostic devices. So you have to define your device, what type of category is falling into it. Why it is very important to define the type of the device, I will be letting you know when we are going to discuss the implementing rule to classify. So depending upon the type of devices, Suppose your device is falling under the body orifice, like any natural opening in the body, as well as the external surface of the eyeball, or any permanent artificial opening such as stroma. You can classify them into a body orifice that your devices is used to help a body orifice. Also, with the surgically invasive device, any device which penetrate inside the body through the surface of the body with the aid of or the context of surgical operations can be classified as a surgically invasive device. So that there are different type of devices: invasive, body modifier, surgical invasive, implantable device, active medical devices, active therapeutic devices. What do you mean by active medical devices? Any device which used an external energy source, or they use are dependent on the electrical energy to power the is intended to achieve its intended use. You can classify them as an active medical devices. One of the very important over here is that standalone software is considered to be an active medical devices. Any of the software which is software as a medical devices, like the artificial intelligence. There are the many of the startups which are right now working on the artificial intelligence based medical software for the predictive analysis of either for the cancer, for TB, for the respiratory, for the cardiac diseases. So all the devices are falling under into the active medical device category. Further, you can able to classify your device, the type of devices under an active device for diagnosis. Any active devices which use alone or in combination with medical devices, which is used for detecting, diagnosis, monitoring, or treating any physiological conditions, state of art, illness, can be classified as an active device for diagnosis. The best example of this device is you are many of the startups they are working on the portable ECG machines, right? So portable ECG machines is classified as a type of active device for diagnosis because it helps in monitoring of physiological conditions. Further, you can able to classify the type of devices, whether it is come in contact with the central circulatory system or with the central nervous system. Because if your devices come under the contact or a type of central circulatory system, then the risk-based classification, then the risk of your device will get increased. So in that case, your devices will fall either into the class C or class D. So I am talking about the implementing rule. So how you can say that once you have defined your the intended use and then your devices with the respect to the duration of use and a type of devices. Now, as per the Indian medical device rule, there are different implementing rules are given over there. So you have to see that with the help of this implementing rule, how you can able to classify your devices into class A, B, C, and D. So you can here you can able to see that the implementing rule is further divided into a non-invasive devices which come in contact with the injured skin, with device which come channeling or storing of the substance. It also divided into invasive with respect to body orifice. Also divided into surgically invasive device for transient and short-term use, and also implantable devices and active therapeutic and active diagnostic devices. So this is the very important thing why you should do all the three steps very carefully, because it will directly have an impact when you are going to classify your devices with the help of this implementing rule which is written in the Indian medical device rules. So I will be taking a case studies right now to classify your medical devices either into the class A, B, C, or D. I will be taking an example of software as a medical devices, how you can classify either it's into a class A, B, C, or D. So I will be moving back to and I will be showing you showing you right down the Indian medical device rule classification chapters, and I will be going through the step-by-step approach to how you can able to classify your devices. I will be just sharing you one more screen right now. Yeah. Now here you can able to see the screen. here you can able to see that there is the document of Indian medical device rule as per the part 1, right? Part 1 is going to get applicable for the all the medical devices manufacturer, and they have further divided into the medical devices and the in vitro diagnostic devices classification. I will just show you the part 2. Part 2 is the parameter for classification of in vitro diagnostic devices. I will be taking the classification route for in vitro diagnostic devices later on. First, I will be covering how to classify your devices, whether into a class A, B, C, or D. So here I told you that I will be taking an example of software as a medical devices. So for the software as a medical devices, it is used for, you might be knowing it's a software. So for software, it's coming under a diagnostic devices. You can just see the rule over here. Here you can see there are different points over here. It is written over there. I'm just showing you again. So like for the non-invasive devices, you can classify into either A or C or B. So you have to read this guidance document very carefully, and then accordingly you have to classify it. So how I can classify your software as a medical devices into either into class A, B, C, or D. So here you can able to see that active diagnostic medical devices. If anything if which you use for the software as a medical device, anything which you use for the monitoring of vital physiological parameters, and anything you can able to classify with the help of active diagnostic medical devices. So the software, so artificial intelligence is basically used to monitor the important physiological parameters. They help in predictive analysis of the many of the critical illness like the TB and the COVID related diseases, like the neurological diseases and the cancer related diseases. So they are helping them in the predictive analysis, monitoring of very vital physiological parameters. So with the help of the active diagnostic medical devices, you can classify them either into class A, B, C, or D. So how we can able to further classify them into A, B, and C? So here you can able to see that point number C. An active diagnostic medical devices shall be assigned to class C, which is intended for the monitoring of vital physiological parameter, where the nature of any variation is such that it could result in immediate danger of to the patients. If your software as a medical devices, standalone software as a medical devices, are used for the monitoring of vital physiological parameters, and it has a direct impact on the health of the patients, like the cardiac performance and respiratory activity of central nervous system, and it will lead to an immediate danger to the patient, then you can classify them into a class C devices. But if it is just used for a normal diagnosis purpose and it is not having a direct impact on the health of the patient, then you can able to classify them into a class B devices. You can just see the point number A of active diagnostic medical devices, that subject to clause B and C, an active diagnostic medical device shall be assigned to B for the direct diagnosis or monitoring of vital physiological parameters. So you have to just see that whether the software will having a direct impact or direct danger to the patient. If it is having a direct danger to the patients with respect to his any cardiac performance or the central nervous system, then it will be a class C devices. If it is not, then it will be a class B device. I will be taking one more example of what we call it hydrogel advanced wound care. Because hydrogel advanced wound care mostly the hydrogel advanced wound care coming under a class B devices. The reason being why it is coming in, under class B devices is right. I just now you are able to see in the screen, right? Are you able to see the screen?
Yes, yes, Siddharth.
Yeah. Okay, fine. Yeah. So for the hydrogel based advanced wound care devices, they are either you can classify as basically it's a non-invasive devices because it is used on the surface of the skin only. So depending upon the raw material which is using, if the hydrogel is using the animal source, if it is containing any chitosan or animal sources, then it is classify them into a class C, because any other medical devices which contain the animal source, medical device incorporating animal or human tissues, they are classified them into a class D. If your hydrogels they are containing animal tissue, you can classify them into a class D devices. Right now, many of the medical device manufacturers they are developing the UV rated devices which is used for a disinfectant. So if your devices are used for a disinfectant of medical devices, then as per the classification, you can classify them into either into class C or into the class B. If they use for the disinfectant of any medical devices which are sterilized or endpoint disinfectant, you can classify them into a class B device. Now I will be taking care of the risk-based classification for the in vitro diagnostic devices. For the in vitro diagnostic devices, they are again classify them into class A, B, C, and D. For the low risk medical devices, they are like blood collection tubes, they are class A. All the low moderate risk medical devices, they are like the glucose testing kits and the luteinizing hormone testing reagents, they are into the class B type of medical devices. Uh, for class C, the moderate to higher risk medical devices like rubella virus and the herpes simplex viruses, they are classified into class C. Why we have classified them into this, like this, I will be letting you know. And all the higher risk medical devices like ABO system testing kits or the reagent, they are classified into class D devices. So again, they are based as the medical devices. They are based on the different implementing rules. Here on also the in vitro diagnostic devices. They are also based on the different implementing rules. Depending upon the class or depending on the type of your devices, the in vitro diagnostic medical devices for detecting of transmission agents. You can classify your devices pertaining to this 6 types. The in vitro diagnostic medical devices for detecting transmissible agents, in vitro diagnostic medical devices for blood grouping or tissue typing, or if it's a self-testing devices, or if they use for the near patient testing devices, or it is used for the in vitro of diagnostic procedures, or if your product is not falling into from 1 to 5 of the IVD, then it is other in vitro diagnostic devices. So you can classify, you can say that it's in, not falling under into the any of the above criteria or the rules. So our product is classify them as a other in vitro diagnostic devices. I will be taking a case study of point of care diagnostic devices for cancer, anemia, and renal. How we can able to classify them into class A, B, C, and D. So I will be again showing you the guidance document which I have shown you for the medical devices, and I help you on giving you the brief understanding. So here you can able to see the part 2, the parameters for classification of in vitro diagnostic medical devices. So we are taking the point of care diagnostic devices for the detection of anemia or for the detection of glucose, right? So if this is a point of care diagnostic devices which is used at the near the patient setting, suppose if they use for a near patient study, near the patient, so you can able to classify them into a class C. Why it is class C? Because in vitro diagnostic devices shall be assigned to class C if they use for near patient testing, either in a blood gas analyzer or a blood glucose determination. This blood gas analyzer or a blood glucose determination, they have just given as an example. It is not just not limited to this. Any of the near patient testing devices which is used for the patient for the diagnosis purpose can be classified them into a class C devices. Further to that, any of the self-testing kits like the glucometers, you can able to classify them into a class C because it is used for intended for a self-testing purpose. As per the implementing rule number 3, in vitro diagnostic medical devices for self-testing can be classified them into a class C medical devices. So I will request all the startups to clearly undergo and read all this implementing rule and classify your devices accordingly, whether it is falling under into A, B, C, or D, as per the implementing rules of this Indian Medical Device Rule 2017. So once you have done all your classification of your medical devices, right? So how to go further it, how to get it registered to the SUGAM portal, irrespective to whether it is regulated medical devices or non-regulated medical devices. All the devices now need to be get registered or have manufacturing license from the CDSCO via the SUGAM portal from 1st of April 2020 onwards. So irrespective of that, you don't have to go for the NOC. You have to just initiate the process of getting the manufacturing license. So what are the prerequisite requirement? You should have a SUGAM portal login credentials on your company name. It will going to take further 15 to 20 days to get this login credentials from the government, because you have to submit a lot of documents pertaining to your company. It means the company formation certificates, your all the shareholder all the name of the owners, directors, every details you have to submit. All the details like the PAN details and everything you have to send to them via courier, and then only they can able to send you the login credentials for the SUGAM portal. The second prerequisite requirement is that you should have a good understanding about the medical device form for the manufacturing license. What form is going to get applicable to you? And the third important requirement is that you should have a ISO 13485 certificate from an accredited notified body. You have to select only an accredited notified body which has received its accreditation from NABCB. So if it is existing devices and a predicate device is available in Indian market, and if your device is falling under a class of A or B, then you have to apply under the form number 3, and you will be getting the permission under form 5. And if you don't have a manufacturing facility, and you are relying on some another facility to manufacture your devices, then under the loan license you have to apply in form number 4. And if your devices fall under C and D, then for the manufacturing license, you have to apply in form number MD7, and for loan license in MD form number 8. And if it is a new device and having a very innovative function and internet use or performance, then you have to first perform the clinical investigation. For the clinical investigations, you have to apply in application form number MD22, and for the manufacturing license in the application form number MD26. And before initiating the clinical investigations, you have to apply for the test license. For the test license, you have to apply under the form number MD16. So for the test license also, you have to give the various documents. Some of the key important documents is about the rationale of how many number of products you are going to manufacture, where you are going to manufacture this since you don't have a manufacturing facility, and a contract agreement with that manufacturer. These are the basic 3 documents which is going to get required when you are going for the test license under the form number MD16. So after you have a basic understanding about the different form which is going to get applicable for your devices, then you have to, whenever you are applying for the manufacturing license, there is some challan which you have to pay to the government, right? For that, for if a device is falling under A or B, it's 5,000 rupees. If it's C and D, it's 50,000 rupees. If you are applying for the test license, then the fee is 500 rupees. If you are applying for the permission of pilot or pivotal clinical studies, the charges of government is rupees 1 lakh rupees. And if you are falling into in vitro diagnostic medical devices, and if you want to perform a clinical performance, then the challan which you have to pay to the SUGAM portal is around 25,000 rupees. Now you have got the basic understanding of your device. You have done all the classification of your devices based on the risk based, and you have also know about what are the different forms and everything. And you also and you have also in parallelly apply for the 13485. Now the how to prepare the application and how to get it initiate the process of manufacturing license. So the one of the very important thing is about the 5th schedule. The 5th schedule is nothing but about the 5th schedule of Indian medical device. We will talk about the quality management system for medical devices and in vitro diagnostic medical devices. It means that your system should be compliant with the 5th schedule. And if you read the 5th schedule and ISO 13485, they are both same. So that's why if you have implemented and got the certificate as per the requirement of 13485, you are by far have implemented the fifth schedule of Indian Medical Device Rule also. Now, the important requirement is about the requirement of content of a site master file, because you have to prepare a site master file or a plant master file when you are going to for the manufacturing license. What are the content of site master file? I will give a brief. And the important thing is about a device master file, and device master file for the medical devices and for the in vitro diagnostic medical devices, that there are different chapters which you have to prepare, and you have to upload it to the Sugam portal for getting the manufacturing license. So these are the brief content of the site master file. It should contain the brief information of the site, what type of manufacturing activities you are doing, the organization chart and layout of what are the, if it is doing under a controlled environment, what are the ventilation requirements, who are the technical person involved into it, how you are having the arrangement of the raw material entry to up to the dispatch, how you are going to segregate the non-conforming products. So all this type of information I have to provide in the master file. A detailed index is already provided into the Indian Medical Device Rule. Now the second requirement is device master file for medical devices. What are the basic the basic content? It should be, you have to have well-defined device description, intended use. You have to classify your devices as per the risk base into A, B, C, and D. You have to provide the design and development validation data in the device master file, all the risk management report as per the ISO 14971-2019 version, clinical evaluation report as per the MedDev guidelines, the label and IFU as per the requirement of EN 1041 and ISO 15223 requirements. Also, you have to perform the biocompatibility and electrical testing as per the requirement of 10993-1 and electrical safety testing as per the 60601 standard. So you have to see that whether your product is an active devices, or if it have a software, then you also have to perform the software validations as per the requirement of 62304 requirements. Further to that, you have to also do the packaging validation, stability studies, post-marketing surveillance report. So this is all document which you have to prepare and you have to submit to the Sugam portal. So once you have submitted all your documents to the Sugam portal, then for the class A and B, they have given the powers to the notified bodies to come and audit your facility and recommend, depending upon the audit, to the CDSCO for the release of the manufacturing license. So the CDSCO, the inspectors will not going to come to do the audit. They have given for the class A and B the responsibility to the notified bodies. The notified body which is currently registered in India are TÜV SÜD, TÜV Rheinland, DNV, Intertech. These are the 4-5 major companies which are currently doing the audit on behalf of CDSCO for the release of the manufacturing license as per the Indian Medical Device Rule. Now, if your device is falling under the in vitro diagnostic medical devices, then you have to prepare again the risk management, performance evaluation data, and analytical studies, accuracy of measurement, reproducibility data, assay cutoff, all this type of data you have to submit in detail, and it's been going to get audited by the notified body for the release of the manufacturing license. Now, what are the timelines? Many other medical device manufacturers have been telling that we don't need the manufacturing license as of now. As per the timeline which is released by the CDSCO, starting from 1st April 2020 onwards, they have given a window period of 18 months. It means that up to 31st of August 2021, getting a manufacturing license under a class A, B, C, and D is voluntary. But after the 31st August, it means from 1st of October, from September, it will going to become a mandatory for the registration of all type of medical device manufacturers and getting them the manufacturing license from the CDSCO, and both for the case of A, B, C, and D. So if you see a typical timeline, if you are a startup company and you want to go apply for the manufacturing license, if you are right now don't have facility, so you have to start the process of identification of your co-partner, co-manufacturing company where you can able to manufacture it, or you don't want to co-manufacture in some another facility. Start identifying your manufacturing facility, start the process of implementing the 13485, because implementing the 13485, carrying out all the validation studies and getting the certification from a notified body is a time consuming thing. You can easily say that it will going to take approximately 4 to 5 months timeline to get the certificate from a notified bodies. Before you are applying to a notified body, you have to make sure that the system is well implemented. So when the notified body auditor will going to come, you will have a minimum of the non-conformities raised onto your system, so you can able to get or able to apply the for the manufacturing license earliest as possible. So also many of the very critical time taking process is the validations. The validations like the software validations, the validations as per the requirement of 60601 or bar compatibility testings. They all are time consuming things, and you cannot able to proceed all these things if you don't have a manufacturing facility, either your own or you have tie up with, or you are doing a contract manufacturing, because the requirement clearly state that you can only able to do the validations, the external validations, software validations, or the biocompatibility or the electrical testings, only the devices which come out from a ISO 13485 implemented company or a facility. So because you have to provide the different details like the details of lot number, batch number, when it's manufactured, when you are going to do all this type of testings like electrical testing, bug compatibility testings, software validation testing. So my request to all the startup is that start looking your contract manufacturing partner or start working on your own manufacturing facility as possible. So you cannot so you can have an ample timeline to get the manufacturing license. So I will be taking the questions, ma'am, with respect to the Indian medical device rule. Then I will be taking the clinical validations part. Any questions?
I think if participants have any questions, I mean there are few questions in the chat box. Siddharth, if you want to take it them now. So one question is, what if it's regarding the hydrogel, which you have explained as a case study. What if the hydrogel is used only on the outer skin? Do we still consider it as a class C device?
You have to see that whether what is the raw material it is. It is the hydrogel contain the animal tissue. It doesn't fall under the animal tissue, then the classification become class B. Because classification is class C only if it contains animal tissue. If it doesn't contain animal tissue, then it will be falling under a class B device.
Okay, thank you, Siddharth. Siddharth, there's one more question that what is the approval process for robotic leg exoskeleton for rehabilitation of spinal cord injury and stroke patient? I think if you want to take this question, we'll proceed. Otherwise, we will also ask participant to write you separately for this question.
I will just take this question, the question for the rehabilitation medical devices. Since you have already classified and it's in active medical devices, so again, since you have already defined use, so as I told you that you have to define intended use and you have to define its duration of use and the type of device it is. So accordingly, you have to go for the manufacturing license. You have to prepare all the device master file and site master file, all type of validation study. You have to do it because for the processes there are various ISO standard, the product related standards is available. So you have to do all the static and the degradation studies on your devices, and then you can able to apply for the manufacturing license.
Okay, thank you, Siddharth. So one more question, that is, what is the regulatory procedure for virtual reality medical tech product used for both diagnosis purpose as well as therapy rehabilitation?
Yeah, for because the virtual reality is coming under the software and medical devices requirement, because there is an head piece is definitely involved into it, but the major work is carried out by the softwares, right? So again, it's a software as a medical device. You have to do all the clinical validations and the risk management part and validation studies to go for the manufacturing license approval.
Okay. Thank you, Siddharth. There's one more question. We can take it up. So there is one. So participant is asking about their device which falls under a category of non-notified IVD, and they have applied. They have also asked for the CDSCO approval, and also applied to the ethics approval committee for trial. So what is required for their device? So clinical performance evaluation MD24 or clinical investigation 22 for CDSCO approval?
For the CDSCO approval, yeah, they need to have a MD24. The MD24 is going to be required for them.
MD24.
Yeah, MD24 is going to require for them. The reason being I have MD24 is going to require for them.
Okay. Thank you, Siddharth. So do you have still any more points to cover, Siddharth?
No, I will be taking care of down a clinical validation requirement, the medical device clinical validation.
Okay, Siddharth, then there is one more question. We can take it up. Question is from the participant that various startups are coming with different technologies related to COVID-19. So what all regulations are mandatory for regulatory side? How to ease such regulatory compliances for startups? So you can probably take one or two examples about any COVID-19 related solution, and if you could shed some light on this.
Yeah, so currently you are seeing that most of the startup they are working on different type of ventilators, either the EMBO type of ventilators or the full-fledged ventilators. So yeah, as per the guidelines of ICMR, they have put that any devices right now which put under the COVID, which is putting into the market, they have to get validated. So for if I talk about these ventilators, so the ICMR they have come up with a guideline. They have given a designated laboratory testing labs where you have to first validate your ventilators as per the requirement of IC 60601. They are a different standard, and then you have to perform a very small number of samples about this clinical performance. Then you can come up with the ICMR that we have already done all the clinical validations and performance testings, and we want to sell the product. So then you can able to apply under the expedited route, because the CDSCO they have come up with the new channel for the all the innovation all the innovators. They can write directly to the CDSCO under that mail ID, and they can get the approval at the fastest pace.
Okay. Siddharth, before we go ahead, I would just like to announce for the participant, we have provided one more polling question for your feedback. Please provide your feedback. Okay, Siddharth, sorry to interrupt you. Please go ahead.
Okay, fine. Yeah, now we'll be taking the second topic on medical device clinical validation.
Siddharth, before that, can we answer few more questions?
Yeah, fine. Yeah, we'll take it.
Okay, so there's one question that is from Parithi. She's asking that to be able to sell this sterilization or decontamination devices to the hospitals, is it mandatory requirement to be registered on the Sugam portal?
Yeah, see, if your sterilization machine is going to use for the sterilization of any medical devices, then yeah, so then it's as per the classification on the medical devices is falling under that category, right? So you have to get registered over there.
Okay, thank you, Siddharth. There's one more question from Aiswar Devraj. How about consumer standalone device which uses AI/ML and using pricks that are used in glucometer?
Yeah, so if there's standalone device, if it's a standalone software, so I have already told you that even it's a software which is integrated in a medical device or standalone software, you can classify them as a medical devices. So as per the active diagnostic type of devices, you can classify them into a class C type of device if it is used for the diagnosis of or for a self-testing purpose.
Okay, thank you, Siddharth. There's one more question from Vinay Saini. So he's asking when we have to submit fee for loan license.
You have to submit the fee for the loan license only when you are uploaded your document to the Sugam portal. Once all the uploading you have done the uploading of your documents, and at the end they will going to ask for the kindly pay the challan. So at that point you have to pay the challan to the CDSCO or to the Sugam portal.
Okay, Siddharth, thank you. There's one more question from Dr. Amrut Raj. He's asking, I would like to know what is the classification if the software as a medical device for the second opinion about the diagnostic decision.
For the diagnostic if it is so if it is not directly hampering the or having a major impact on the health of the patients, so you can classify them into class B. If with the help of your software as a medical having a direct impact on the patient's health, like this clinical physiological parameter, then it will be falling into class C. So you have to see the impact which is going to happen on the patient with the use of your software or your device. So you can say it's a B, or you can, if having a direct impact on the health of the patients, then it's a C device. If not, then it's a classification. You can classify them into a B.
Okay, Siddharth, I think we won't be able to take any more questions. So we will try to, a participant can write to us. We will revert for the, answer the questions or over email, as well as you can write to our speaker also. So I request Siddharth to move ahead with your, remaining slides.
Okay. So now the next topic is medical device clinical validations. Why clinical validation is necessary? Because if your device is a novel intended use and have a very novel performance features, and you don't find any predicate or equivalent devices in the market, in that case you can able to perform and go for the clinical validations. If a sufficient clinical evidence is not present with respect to the predicate devices, then you can able to go for the clinical validation. Or if you have done any enhancement in the performance, or if you have added any novel features of the predicate device which is currently available, in that case you have to perform the clinical validations. If you intend to market your device in the European Union or the USA, if you want to go for the C certifications, right? So in that case, as per the new rule, the European Medical Device Regulations 2017, they have made it mandatory that you have to have the device data or clinical data with respect to your devices. So in that case, you have to perform the clinical validations. If a predicate or equivalent device is not present, in that case, you have to perform the clinical validations. And if you want to establish the clinical evidence of your own devices, in that case, you have to perform the clinical validations, because if you have the data with respect to your devices, then you can able to say that about the safety, efficacy, and performance of devices, and how it is beneficial with respect to other devices which is already available in the market. So you can able to show the what we call it improvements part, or the how your devices can able to have more features with respect to all the device which is available. So there are different way, different reasons why you can able to perform the clinical validations. So the important things which everyone should know about the predicate device, actually the predicate device is a term which is used in the US FDA part when we are going to submit for the 510K applications, and equivalent devices is mainly used for a devices which if you want to sell your product in the European market. So in either of the cases, your devices, whether it's a predicate device or equivalent devices, you have to compare with the three important parameters. The first is clinical parameters, technical parameters, and biological parameters. So if you have if your device has a predicate device or equivalent devices, then you have to have a clear cut tabular format, how you can say that your X devices is equivalent to your devices with respect to clinical, technical, and biological parameters. So you have to prepare an entire matrix system, and you have to say that it is an equivalent or a predicate device. So what are the prerequisite requirements before you are applying for for the clinical validations requirement? The first requirement is that you should have a test license as per the Indian medical device rule. You should have a design history file ready for your device, which I have seen is missing in most of the medical device startups. You should have a risk management report as per the ISO 14971-2019. This is very important because whatever the risk which you are going to identify over there, it should be get discussed in the clinical evaluation or in the clinical validation protocol which we have to prepare. You should also have a well-planned and detailed usability engineering report as per the EN 62366 requirement, and a clinical evaluation report as per the literature route. So these are the basic prerequisite requirement before you would like to initiate any of the clinical validation studies, because all from all these 4 to 5 documents we had to gather the inputs, and that inputs will be get discussed in the clinical trial protocol which we have to prepare. So what are the essential elements? The essential elements for any of the clinical trial or clinical validation is the clinical trial protocol. You should have a well-planned, well-detailed clinical protocol. You should also have an informed consent form ready with you, a case record from an investigator brochures, a risk management report, and a device manual and IFU. So all these documents should be with you before you would like to initiate the clinical studies, because these are all the essential elements of it. So what are the steps to conduct the clinical validations? The first step is to prepare the test license. Once you have received the test license, then you have to prepare the all essential element documents, what I have discussed right now. And then you have to submit the clinical trial application to the CDSCO. CDSCO has a different department to handle all the clinical trial or clinical research related activities. So you have to apply with the clinical trial application form, which I have discussed, with the applicable challan, and you have to apply. Then once you have applied to the CDS2 clinical trial department, they will review all your essential elements document, and when the NTEC committee meeting will happen, they might call you for a presentation of your devices and how you would like to perform the clinical validation study. They might call to you. Once you got the NOC from the CDSCO for carrying out the clinical trial in India, then the next step is to get it registered on the CTRI website. CTRI is a clinical trial registry of India, and it is mandatory to any of the manufacturers to get it registered, because if you have not registered your devices, getting the risk committee approval become a challenging job, because one of the important documents which is required for the risk committee approval is the NOC from the CDSCO and the CTRI registration number. These two things are the very important things which the risk committee will going to check it before they will initiate any type of reviewing process of your documents. They will screen that whether you have received this two basic approval or not. If you have received, then only they will take your application for the reviewing of all the elements under the ethics committee meetings. So once you have got the ethics committee approval from the hospital, now the next important thing is about the clinical monitoring. Suppose you are doing the multi-central clinical validation studies, and you have many different sites across India. So then the clinical monitoring activities, you have to perform it as per the requirements stated in the Indian Clinical Trial Rule 2019. And once all the clinical monitoring activities has been completed, then the site closeout activities should be happened, and all the clinical data analysis and the clinical trial reports should be prepared as per the raw data which we have received from the different sites when we have done the site closeout activities. And with the help of the biostatisticians, we have to do the clinical data analysis, and we have to prepare a clinical trial report as per the requirement of ICH requirements. And also we can able to publish this clinical trial data in the various journals with the and so that your devices, your company should have a more credentials when you are wanted to sell your product into the any of the market. You can say that we have already published the clinical data or data in the journal, and it has shown safety, efficacy, and performance with respect to other predicate devices which is already available in the market. So these are the basic steps to perform the clinical validations for any of the medical devices company, either it's in vitro diagnostic or a medical device company. These are the basic steps which any of the companies should follow to when they are conducting the clinical validation studies. So I will be just showing you the walk through the clinical trial protocol, what are the basic content of the clinical trial protocol, and how you can able to prepare the clinical trial protocol.
Siddharth?
Yeah, yes.
I think I know this is a very vast topic to cover, and 1 hour is not really, it's impossible. So, but since we have a time constraint here, if we can quickly finish in another couple of minutes.
Yeah, I have already completed. I'm just showing this table of content, and then it's over.
Yeah, so we can take a couple of questions and then we can.
Yeah, right.
Thank you, Siddharth.
Right. So I'm here currently showing the table of content for one of the medical devices, like processor devices, which we have done it. What are the basic content of the clinical trial protocol? It should be have a study administration structure, all the sponsors, principal investigator, statistician, the ethical and regulatory aspects should be covered over here. Background and rationale of your devices, study objective, like the primary objective, secondary objective, safety objectives, performance objective, what are the study outcome, what you want to get it from the study, primary, secondary, and safety outcome, what are the study design, how you can able to study either a randomized single blind, double blind study, what are the populations, what are the study interventions you have to do it. So this all should be going to be get discussed much in detail when we are going to prepare. What are the follow-up period, if there's any follow-up, day 1, day 2, or day 3. It all should be get discussed well in detail in the clinical trial protocol. So here you can just see that about the here you can see that there's a follow-up from the day 1 to day 31. There's follow-up, right? Tester time of the day. We have to also do the follow-up of the intervention which we have given to the patient, right? So all this should be get discussed well in detail about it. What are the bias decisions? How you can able to go into analyze your devices. It should be discussed well in detail. You have to give the pictorial diagram also to your devices, how it going to get used, like this is devices, you have to provide all the pictorial diagram, what are the control interventions, storage conditions, all this type of detail you have to provide much in detail when you are preparing the clinical trial protocols. So I just finished this very brief and very short discussion on the medical device regulatory and clinical validations. So any of the participants have any questions, I'll love to answer them.
Thank you, Siddharth. I think we will be able to take only a couple of questions. So there are 2 questions we would like to take now. One is that from Paridhi Mishra, she's asking about since there is a PPE shortage and a lot of devices to sterilize N95 masks for reuse. Such devices also falls under sterilization category, but here they are not being used for sterilization of medical device, but for the mask. So is there any relaxation in the regulatory requirement?
Yeah, currently for the PPE, they have done a relaxation that you have to apply to the SUGAM portal, but there's no audit will be carrying out. So only you have to apply to the SUGAM portal, and then you can able to when you apply for the SUGAM portal, you can able to get a unique number or what we call it the registration number from the CDSCO. So once you have received that the registration number, you can able to sell the product into the market. Because the relaxation they have given that there will be no audit will be carried out for all the PPE manufacturers.
Okay. Thank you, Siddharth. We'll take only one more question. Manufacturing license should be applied before or after clinical validation?
After the clinical validation.
Okay. So I think we have come towards the end of the session. Since because of the time constraint, we need to stop here. But I know this topic is very vast, and thank you, Siddharth, for such a wonderful and informative session. I also thank all our participants for their active participation, as well as I would also like to announce something for our participant that since you probably some of the people are aware. That we are conducting Power Hour with Sign every week. So we have our next session. Please stay tuned for this Power Hour Hour with Sign. And we have our next session on Thursday, 4 June 2020 between 4 to 5 p.m. It is the session will be on the leadership during the turbulent times, and it is from the very well-known person, Mr. Ram Kumar. So please stay tuned for this webinar. We will share the link shortly after this webinar today itself. Please join us for this webinar too. It will be very informative for the startups. So on this note, I would like to stop here. Thank you, Siddharth. Thank you everyone for your participation. And if any of the startups, entrepreneurs, innovator would like to get in touch with the Sign for any queries, questions, they can write to us regarding even regulatory of medical devices as well as any other incubation related purpose to bd@signiitb.org, as well as you can also write to the Siddharth. Siddharth has already given his email address as well as contact number, so you can directly contact him. You can also forward your queries to us, because we were not able to take all the questions because of the time constraint. We'll be very happy to answer those questions and queries. Thank you everyone for joining. And thank you Sign IT team for this smooth conducting this smooth section. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, thanks, Siddharth.
Thank you, ma'am. गुड मॉर्निंग मैम. हेलो मैम. हेलो. अभी जस्ट खत्म हुआ मेरा ये साइन के साथ था आज का 1 घंटे का सेशन था, पावर आवर था ना उनका. हाँ तो